All right, I'm just going to start this lecture right now. I'm not going to wait further for anyone. So, in this video lecture, we shall be talking about the human resources, its management, and theories of human resources management. And this is going to be started from today onwards, and this is going to be very important. Okay, because in overall if we see that there will be 3 or 4 questions at least from this specific part. Okay, so all in all the management contains the 1/10 part of a paper second. That means 10 questions are going to be asked from specifically the management. Okay, and from this management at least 4 questions shall be there from the human resources management, and this is going to be very important part. Four, and these can be 5 as well, because sometimes they ask you about different theories as well regarding human resources management. This is why we have allotted or we have assigned this specific day and coming 3 or 4 days for the different concepts regarding human resources management. So before waiting, not going to waiting for anyone, just going to start my lecture right now. Before starting this specific lecture, again, as I ask you daily, that if my voice is completely audible to you, can I start my lecture? Just need your confirmation. Can I start my lecture now? Rashmi, can I start lecture? Is this all audible to you? Can you see me clearly? If this voice and okay, all right. Thank you so much. I've got the confirmation from almost everyone. Just going to show you what we have prepared for you in this specific lecture. And I must tell you that this is very important. Okay. So I tell you this on daily basis, because whatever the content we create and whatever we assign you, whatever we tell you, these all things are very important from point of view, okay, of examination. So this topic is about human resources management. We shall talk about later, but we have to understand about human resources first of all. What are the human resources? First of all, let me clear you one thing. Whatever we are going to study right now or in coming days, we have to take into consideration from the point of view, all the point of view of an organization. We shall be study HR on the basis of an organization. Okay, and that organization can be any. This can be an educational organization, this can be a business organization, this can be a retail organization or wholesale, anything. Okay, so we have to take into account the organization. Only then, from the point of view of organization, we have to understand this specific topic. Okay, so what are human resources? Each and everyone working in the organization is its human resources. Okay, human resources. Nowadays, this is a very much contemporary topic, included not only in one discipline but number of other subjects as well. Like we shall be studying about the human resources in accounting as well, in finance as well. Whenever there is the name of a human resources, number of disciplines are involved. So what are human resources? Each and everyone working in the organization, okay, that is its human resources. So so now I think that you have understood about what the human resources is. Okay, so this is all the workers directly or indirectly attached with the organization, and the word management here simply refers to management of all the human resources in the organization. That means management of all the workers from their initial hiring up to their uh, final retirement. You have to manage your workforce. Okay, so this kind of management which happens between the process of hiring up of the personals and till their retirement, that kind of management is known as human resources management. Okay, So Edwin Filippo has told that planning, HRM is planning, organizing, directing, controlling, developing, development, compensation, integration, maintenance, and separation of human resources to the end that individuals, organization, and social objectives are achieved. So they are telling you that you have to manage your human resources or your personals in a way that you can achieve your organizational goals. Okay, so this is the definition of HRM as given by Edwin B. Filippo. Although these are not relevant, but just for the sake of making you understand about the concept regarding this, this is the reason why we include always some kind of definitions. So now you would have understood about what the human resources are and its management. If in to a layman, if I wish to teach that specific topic, I would simply say that whoever is attached with any organization, like there is my college or my university. In my college there are number of department and there are number of workers working in the department, irrespective of the positions they are holding, whether he is HOD, whether this assistant professor or associate professor. There are number of workers, and these workers from the point of view of organization are known as human resources, and managing all these workers is known as human resources management. So this was the brief description about human resources management, as the Edwin Filippo has defined, that the HRM's purpose is only to achieve your individual, organizational, and social objectives. So before moving further, I believe that going through from its objectives in a very descriptive format would be a very good option. So this is why we have included all these, and I shall tell you what are the meaning of these specific objectives. First are societal objectives. Okay, whatever the obligations of a company, whatever the obligation a company is having towards its society and its employees. So uh, these comes under the societal objectives. So a company has to achieve its social objective, and these can be achieved only they are properly managing their human resources or their employees. Then there are organizational objectives. These can be anything, like these can be maximizing of benefits, achieving of profits, then achieving of different functional performance or distribution or marketing, advertising, sales. Any kind of objective of organization can be there. And you know that for achieving any kind of objective, there are human resources involved directly with that objective. So you have to manage these in a way that these objectives are properly attained. And the last one is personal objective. There can be some personal objective of the employees as well, which the company has to take into account. Okay, so this is why the Petra Drucker has brought forward the concept of management by objectives. Okay, so you have to take into consideration the personal objectives as well. So these can be achieved only when you have the cordial relations with human resources of your company, and these can be achieved only through their proper management. So these were the three objectives only for this. And before moving for the functions are very easy to go through. Okay, I think that we must go through functions first, then we shall be going through some theories of human resources management. As before the start of any concept, there are some approaches, there are some philosophies, schools of thought. In the same way, for managing the human resources, there are different kind of theories which we have to go through. But genuinely, I believe, first of all, we must go through from different functions of human resources management. So now we shall move further towards the different kinds of human resources functions. Okay, so now I'm just going to open what are there in the functions. So The functions of human resources management is, it answers a specific questions. As I every time tell you that there must be a question to be answered. So the question is, how do you manage? How do you manage, or how do you plan? How do you plan managing your human resources? How do you plan managing your human resources? Okay, how do you plan? Okay, so this question can be answered by going through the functions of management. It tells you how do you plan your management of your human resources, whatever the person working in your department or in your organization. So how do you plan managing your human resources? This kind of a question we are going to get answer in the coming slides. So there are two kind of functions performed in the human resources management. The first are the managerial functions, and the second one are operative functions. So the first are managerial functions, and the second one are operative functions, and these are very important to go through once the questions from functions of human resources management was asked in the examination. So under managerial functions, there are some certain functions, and under operative functions, there are some certain functions performed for managing properly the human resources of the organization. So under managerial functions, these functions are, the abbreviation of this was given by Luther Gulick once this question was also asked in the examination, and one letter of this complete, each alphabet of this refers to something. Like P stands for planning, O for organizing, then staffing, directing, coordinating, reporting, and budgeting. So these are some managerial functions performed for properly management of a human resources in your organization. Okay, so these are the detail. These are written only for. I have written only for only the reason that while going through from the functions of management in the very first lecture of the management, we have already understood about planning, organizing, staffing, directing, then controlling. Okay, so these things we have already gone through. Okay, so you have to plan your human resources. First of all, planning just involves how you shall hire them, how you shall select them, okay, how you shall retain them. This kind of planning is known as human resources planning. Then you have to organize them, you have to make the departments, and you have to assign them the responsibilities. This is just known as organizing your human resources. Directing simply means ordering your human resources. You have to order them. Okay, you have to order them in a way that they properly follow your instructions. And finally, you have to control them. You have to control the work done by them. You have to check this on daily basis or on weekly, quarterly, or monthly basis, and you have to keep a close watch on their performance. So this is about this is all about the managerial functions are performed for the proper management of your human resources. Otherwise, you can go through from planning, organizing, staffing, directing, controlling, then organizing again is there, then reporting, then budgeting. Okay, reporting only stands for reporting about who is doing well in the organization as who is not performing well, just for the sake of giving them reward or punishments. Then budgeting, how much the budget and individual human resources is consuming in your organization. This is about budgeting of the human resources. So these were the managerial functions about the human resources. And now, as I have already explained you that the functions of a human resources can be divided into two parts, the managerial and operative. Managerial we have already gone through. Now we shall understand about operative functions. Okay, these are the functions of personnel department only. Managerial functions are the functions of a whole of the organization as a whole, and these decisions are taken by merely the top level authorities or the board of directors. And now we have to go through from operative functions, which are basically performed not by whole of the organization but by the personnel department. And which are these functions? These are procurement functions. These involves a recruitment and selection. And you do not have to be worried about, because in coming days the complete lectures regarding individual function of operative functions, there shall be a complete lecture. So recruitment and selection is there in procurement function. Development in this training function is there. You have to train your employer human resources in the way that they help you achieve your organizational goals. Then promotion is there, transfer is there, termination function is there. You have to promote, you have to transfer on the basis of the work performed by them. You have to terminate them if they are not doing well. Then there are compensation functions. Okay, so these are like remuneration, like salary, then wages. So these kind of functions you have to perform for the human resources. Then there are welfare functions like trade unions, like workers welfare associations. These things we have to go through in separate lectures. So each and everything shall be involved. This is just the introduction of whatever falls under the operative functions. And the last one is collective bargaining. Again, trade union, workers union, okay, associations, these comes under these kind of considerations. And we have to go through from these things as well. If there is any kind of a dispute that we have to understand, we have to go through about how the dispute between the trade union and the organization is resolved upon. So I hope you would have understood about the managerial functions. Okay, so these are described in two formats. First is managerial, then operative. Managerial are just these ones. And about operative, these are separate chapters involved in the human resources management, which we shall go in the coming lecture. But I believe that I have given you all the complete information so that you can easily comprehend what in the coming lecture will be there. So we have gone through about the basic of a human resources management, then we did its function. Now there are some theoretical basis of HRM or human resources management. Why I did go through with the functions, the only reason is that there are number of theories regarding human resources management, and these theories we have to understand and we have to go through. Only then we can understand. And I don't know whether this shall be completed in this one or single lecture, and maybe we have to take another lecture. If this is the case, then for the next lecture a recording shall be there, which shall be delivered to you along with the whole lecture of paper 2. Okay, so now we have to move further towards the theories. And what does these answers? These only answer to a specific questions: how human resources are managed, how these are managed, how you can manage your human resources. There are number of theories which answers to this specific question. Okay, so I am going to move towards different theories. So before going through theories, there were some approaches which are famously known as the phases of human resources management. Okay, these tells you how they were how the human resources are being treated from the ancient time, how they are being treated from the ancient time, from the time they were considered slaves to the time nowadays when they are considered the important assets for the organization. So there are some phases of HRM. So the first phase was an industrial revolution phase. Okay, so that was the phase when they were considered to be slave only. Okay, they were treated as glorified machine tools. The workers were treated as machine tools only. The employers were keen to meet production targets. They did not consider anything about their workers' demand. Okay, so that was the case of the complete system regarding the industrial revolution period. So this is the thing we have to understand. Okay, so it is about that. So this was the first one. I think some kind of a trouble is there. I'm just going to make it amend. Just give me 2 seconds. Okay, all right, everything is working fine. All right. So the thing is there, we have to move towards some phases of industrial revolution. So the first one, when the workers were treated as machine tools only. Okay. The purpose of the company was just to uh, meet production goals only. There was none kind of laissez-faire policy. So government did very little to protect the interest of the workers. Okay, so the employees' interest was not protected in industrial revolution phase. So this was the first phase in which the industrial revolution took place. So this was that case, first phase of human resources management. And now there is a trade unionism. The next one was a trade unionism. Okay. So in this phase, what was there as a consequence of industrial revolutions? Workers who felt that they were not being treated well in the organization, they started a revolution. Okay, so they joined hand with together, and they tried to protect themselves against the exploitative tendency of employers. Okay, so they formed the trade unions. So this was the phase or the era when the trade union came actually into picture. So that was the second phase in the history of the human resources management. And the second one we have already gone through in detail when we were doing the phases or the approaches of management. Then I taught you about the scientific management as provided or given by Frederick Winslow Taylor. Okay, so he informed us, he simply taught us about the scientific management theory. So that was the theoretical base which we had to understand. So what does Frederick Winslow Taylor taught us? He told us that the complete work should be divided in a very smaller parts. Okay, and the work should be performed extremely scientifically. Only then we can further uh, achieve the goals of our organization. So they told us that to improve your efficiency and speed, scientific management should be there. So this is famously known as the phase of scientific management as suggested by F.W. Taylor. Right now, I have taught you about 4 phases of industrial system. This is what this is there. So first of all, the industrial revolution phase was there when the workers were treated only as a slaves or machine tools. Then unionism was there when the workers felt the discrimination about them, and they just joined hands and they formed trade unions. After that, scientific management was there when F.W. Taylor started that workers should be treated in a way that the work is divided into subparts and the specialization should be achieved on the basis of specifications to the individual workers. Then the human relations movement was there, which was done by Hawthorne experiments by specific person named Elton Mayo. I told you that they took 8 longer years for studying the human relations in the organization. So they suggested that human resources can be better managed if there are the cordial kind of human relations in the organization, or there is the humanitarianism in the organization. So in Harvard, with his Harvard colleagues, Elton Mayo conducted the research, and their research focused attention on the attitude and feelings of workers and their influence on productivity. So they told that the human relations should be made perfect, like the subordinate should treat the human resources in the way that they always feel good for the organization, and there is the complete kind of a humanitarian grounds. So this was the way by which the human resources should be managed as suggested by Elton Mayo. The next phase was human resource phase. Okay, so this phase tells you simply that the workers of the organizations should be considered as the separate human resources. Okay, so this is a very much a contemporary phase. Okay, these two phases, last two phases are very much contemporary. The emphasis in this approach on the individual involvement in decisions made in the organization. So this theory or this phase tells you that you have to listen to your workers as well while taking any kind of decisions for the organization. They should be involved in the decisions making. So this is how they should be treated, and this is how they should be managed in the organization. Okay, this behavioral science era led to the development of new techniques of motivation and leadership. Like they can be done job enrichment, they can have their participation or two-way communication. Only then they can feel themselves as the human resources of the company, and in this way they should be properly managed. The basic crux of this phase was that they should be involved in the decision making of the organization. The next is the last phase is the personal specialist and welfare phase. This is the very contemporary phase about which number of chapter or researches are being conducted nowadays. What does this specific era tells you? This only tells you that they should be made specialist in their specific area, and the workers or the human resources there shall be some complete employee welfare programs or structures for the benefit of them. Only then the human resources can be better managed in the organization. So this specific phase tells you that it begins to manage employee benefit programs and industrial relation system in the industry. So this was the last phase, or this is very contemporary, and after that there do not exist any kind of phases. So as I told you that there are some phases for human resources management, which are like industrial phase, then trade unionism, then scientific management, human relation movement, human resources movement, then human welfare phase or welfare movement. I think there were 7 phases from which the evolution of a human resources approaches or the different systems emerged. So that was all about these, and the next are the theories regarding human resources management. Okay, so we have to move towards the different theories of management. If you have understood about the phases of the human resources, then going through the theories of the human resources of management is very easy for you. Okay, so one by one I shall be telling you some theories. Okay, some theories involves the specific authors and some theories do not involve any specific author, and I am going to tell you right now. I think more than 8 or 9 theories are there. If these are not completed in this lecture, the next part of this lecture shall be a recorded video. It shall be attached with this specific lecture. So the first theory was organizational life cycle theory. Okay, it simply tells you, that was given by Cameron and Wetton in 1981, and it tells you that an organization have its own life cycle. Okay, and we have to understand this life cycle. What does this life cycle contains? First of all, an organization is formed. After that, it grows. After that, it attains the level of maturity, and after that it declines, and after that its death occurs. Okay, Usually it doesn't happen, okay, because they at this stage they changes their activities so that they grows again. Otherwise, as just is suggested by them, these are the five different development through which the organizational development happens, and they tells you that in each of the development you have to manage your human resources. Only then you can achieve your organizational goals. So this was the organizational life cycle theory in all. Okay, so that was the detail of this. We move further. This is the next one. This is role behavior theory given by Rogers in 1983. Okay, so this tells you that everyone has a different role behavior in the organization, and they should be managed in the way as the roles they are performing in the organization. If there is a superior one or the subordinates, they should be treated on the way they are performing the role in the organization. So this theory aims to explain and predict the behavior of individuals and teams in the organization, which in turn inform managers for the purpose of decision making. So I think that was easy for you. This means that this theory tries to explain the behavior of individuals and which is helping for the purpose of decision making, so that the human resources can be better managed in the organization. So that was about the detail of role behavior theory. So two we have gone through: organizational life cycle, then a role behavior theory. The third one is a resource dependency theory. Okay, I think that theory we have already done, but still we would move from this. Resources were seen as agents of organizational power. Concerning useful labor, the emphasis is shifted to seeing employees as scarce resources. So this theory simply says that the humans or the workers of your organizations are your resources, and you depend upon these resources for achieving your organizational goals. So this theory only tells you that the employees are your scarce resources, and these should be acquired effectively. They should be utilized, they should be developed, and they should be retained in the organization so that its goal can be achieved. So three theories we have gone through. The fourth one is institutional theory. Okay, institutional theory. So this theory simply tells you that rather than a resource, each and every worker is an institution in himself, because he has knowledge, he has skill, he has power, he has efforts. Okay, he has everything to achieve his specific goals. So the main objective of the collective action is less or greater control of the acts of individual. This theory simply states you that you have to feel and you have to take the note of whatever the benefit a special person can give to your organization. So this take note of the skill or the knowledge the workers are possessing, and they tells you that you have to manage your human resources on the basis of skills knowledge they are possessing, the gains or losses they can give to your organization, and on the basis of this you should manage your human resources. So human resources are seen as the institutions, as an individual institution in themselves, and when they joined together, when they joined hand with other their co-workers, then they forms the great kind of a contribution to for the success of your organization. So this was the fourth, I think this was the fourth theory. The first was organizational life cycle, then role behavior, resource dependency, then institutional theory. Then this is a transaction cost theory. What does this theory says you? This theory simply says you that for acquiring and retaining the human resources in the company, okay, for retaining or acquiring or hiring those people, okay, what you have to do, you simply have to expend a lot of things. Okay, you have to make a lot of expenses for at your human resources. So these expenses are known as a transactions cost for managing the human resources. And this theory tells you that the companies will grow if the cost of exchanging resources in the company are cheaper than their competitors. Okay, so this theory tells you the human resources management costs in the organization, or the transaction cost of managing the human resources in the organization should be less in comparison with whatever your competitors are expending in the same area. Okay, so this was the fifth theory, and I think we have done a lot in this specific or individual lecture, and it would not be viable, it will be burdenized if we go further to different theories. Okay, because there are, I think, 5 or 6 theories left, and that we shall be doing in the next lecture. If this is taken live, then we shall be informing you. Otherwise, it shall be added, its recorded version shall be added in the video we are already doing. Okay, so this was the last theory, and about the detail of this theory and the conclusion of the theory, the complete crux of this shall be given at the end of this specific lecture. So if the lecture is taken, then we shall be informing you in 10 minutes. Otherwise, its recorded session will be there. Okay, so thank you so much for joining in this lecture. We shall be informing you soon regarding whatever the developments. All right, so as we have already completed about the transaction cost theory, now we have to move further to the next one, and this is going to be regarding comparative advantage theory. And this theory regarding the human resources approach was given by a famous economist named David Ricardo. And I'm going to tell you that this is important for international theories as well, because in case of international theory, in that context, we shall be reading this theory, comparative advantage theory, again. Okay, so I am just going to clear your concept regarding this specific theory, and then we shall move on. Okay, so this particular theory says that different nations can have their comparative advantage over others. Okay, and that can be due to their efficient labor. Okay, in some countries there are labor in abundance, which is skillful labor. Okay, skillful labor. So this theory is simply saying that if you have comparative advantage as far as the skill of your human resources is concerned, then you have to take full advantage of that skill of your human resources. Okay, then you should rather producing the kind in which you the kind or products in which you do not possess any kind of comparative advantage. You should produce those things in which, for which there is comparative advantage for your nation. So this theory is simply saying you that nation should produce goods in which they have domestic comparative advantage over other. So when we read, we get to know that the main architecture of the comparative advantage theory is the economist David Ricardo, who talked about the specialization and division of labor among nations and firms. Okay, so there are two countries, A and B. Maybe a country is labor efficient. That means its labor is having very highly high skills required for production, and the country B is capital intensive. Okay, it can provide the capital, okay, but it cannot provide the labor. So they can exchange with each other if they are having the comparative advantage over each other, like A countries having the comparative advantage in the field of labor as well as the B country is having the comparative advantage in the field of capital. So they should use the elements of their comparative advantage. They should exchange them and they should produce those things only in which they have comparative advantage. So they should use their human resources in a way that they can efficiently produce the things in which they have advantage over others. So he postulated that nations should produce goods in which they have a domestic comparative advantage over others. So Ricardo have given this theory in 1891. So this thing we have covered now. Now we have to move further to the next theory relating to human resources management. And this theory is a general systems theory. And this theory simply says that you have already gone through from the business entity concept, okay? And this concept relates to the matter that the stakeholders or the shareholders or the company is different. Shareholders are different from the company. This is separate entity and this is separate entity. In the same way, this applies in the case of human resources as well. And general system theory says that human resources are separate from other departments. Okay, they are a complete system in themselves. So they should be managed in a way like other departments or other systems of the corporation are managed. Okay, so this is the general system theory. The system approach considered the human resources department separate from other department. Okay, so like not only the individual humans but their complete department should also be considered to be the separate department. Okay, in every organization nowadays you can experience in the organizations, in every organization, even in the educational organization, there is a separate department named human resources department. This department has been made on the lines that the human resources should be considered to be the separate systems of a complete corporation. Only on those grounds this kind of department is made. It emphasizes human resource department as part of organization system because human resources are the separate system of the company. One of the organization's input from the environment is human resources. Okay, one of the most important input to the organization is its human resources. So I have taught you regarding general system theory. Now we have already done comparative advantage theory. This is the next one, and this is human capital theory. What does it says? This gives focus for human resources as a capital. This theory considers that your human resources are your long-term capital and it focuses on the education and the training of them. So this theory has been developed by Baker in 1964 and it has grown in importance worldwide because it focuses on education and training as a source of capital. Okay, so this theory simply says that human being or human resources are your capital and they should be educated and they should be trained in a way that they contribute to the organizational growth and achieving their goals. So this theory relates to human capital theory, which take into consideration the human resources as an efficient capital for the company for which they have to make the investment. They are source of capital as well and the source of investment as well, because the company or the concern has to educate them, has to train them. So this was human capital theory in all. The next one is the strategic contingency theory. Okay, what does this theory says? This theory simply makes on the grounds that overall corporate strategy should also take into consideration about the human resources management. Okay, So when it simply says when the corporation is newly formed, then along with all the other functions of management like planning, organizing, staffing, directing, controlling, along with all these functions, a separate functions named management of human resources should also be considered to be the part of a strategic contingency. So this is why this theory is named as a strategic contingency theory. So it says that overall corporate strategy and feedback from the environment will dictate optimal strategies, policies, objectives, activities, and tasks in human resources management. So it's just emphasizing that overall corporate strategy should form or should include the management of human resources in itself. They should dictate the optimal strategies, policies, objectives, and activities. Okay. So this was the crux of a strategic contingency theory. And if when we are moving further, then we get to know about organizational change theory. What does this says? This organizational change simply means moving the organization from present status to the future desired status. This is called organizational change. This theory was given by Gareth in 2009, and it defines the organizational change as a process by which organization move from their present state to some desired future state to increase their effectiveness. And how human resources should be managed, they are saying that as the organizational change is happening, in the same way the change in the management of human resources should be made. So it's saying that these developments of change influence different aspect of human resources management, and in response organization have to change the way organization structure, job design, recruitment, utilization, development, reward, and retention. So it's saying that as the organization is changing by time, in the same way you have to change the organization structure, job design, recruitment, utilization, development, reward, and retention regarding the human resources. So this is organizational change theory, which is emphasizing that there should not be the consistency in the development of the human resources. They should regularly be trained, they should regularly be educated, job design should be changed, recruitment process should be changed, the employees should be rewarded and retained on the basis like the organizational change is happening around the world. So now we move to further to the next theory, and this theory is relating to organizational learning theory. Organizational learning theory. Okay, this is simply saying that as the organization is growing, like in first year, second year, third year, 10th year, 15th year, and so on, as the organization is growing, it is learning number of things. Okay, number of new things. In the same way, human resources should not be treated the way they were treated when the organization was formed. When the organization is growing, in the same way the process of treating the human resources should also grow, and they should be made learn new things. So agrees and Scon and Senge have emphasized the importance of a total organizational learning, whereby individuals and teams muster knowledge. Muster means they can gain knowledge relating to their work and the environment, and they can share common vision. So they are just saying that as the organization is growing, the individuals and the team can learn a new thing. They can share common vision, models, strategies, and they can address the present and future of the organization. So they should be treated in a way that their learning should be continuous, and the management should make all possible effort for making their learning and their achieving of a goal continues. So in this way, if we are making the crux of all the theories in the human resources management, The first was organizational life cycle theory, which take into account the thing that the organization has its complete life cycle. Then role behavior theory, the individual or human resources should be treated in the organization on the basis of role they are playing. Then a resource dependency theory, the human resources are considered to be the scarce resources and they should be treated in a way that they give their maximum benefit to the organization. Then institutional theory, and they are an institution in itself, okay, individual, and collaboratively or jointly they can contribute maximum to the welfare of your company. Then transaction cost theory just emphasized that for retaining, for training, or for developing human resources, there are a number of costs which are known as transaction cost, which you have to incur. Okay, so when you should manage your human resources in a way that the transaction cost for your employees is lesser than the transaction cost of whatever your competitors are incurring. Then there is comparative advantage theory, which emphasize on the thing that you should use your human resources in a way that their maximum ability or their skill, their comparative advantage should be used to the maximum extent. Then general system theory is simply saying that human resources are a different part or system of the whole concern, and there should be a separate department known as human resources department in the corporation. Then this is human capital theory. This is saying that human being or the human resources are your most important capital and you should focus on their education and training. Then strategic contingency just says that your overall corporation strategy should include the optimal strategies, policies, and activities relating to human resources management. Then organizational change theory just says that as the organization grows, there are a number of changes they have to adopt. Okay, so in the same way, the companies or the concerns have to pay attention so that their human resources management is changing day by day. Okay, so their development or their systems should be in a way that as the organizational is changing, the way the human resources are being treated should also change. Then organizational learning theory simply says that as the organization grows, the individuals or human resources should be made learn about different things so that they can share common vision, model, strategies for addressing the present and future of the organization. So these were the complete theories of organization structure. Okay, human resources management. Today we did about human resources management, then its function and theories. So I hope that was the complete detail regarding that, and I hope you would have understood this completely. That was most important part. So in this way we have did that, and about the next lecture we shall be informing you as soon as possible. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Gurpal Singh from Gurpal Education.